Mr. Chairman, Party Leader, friends all, thank you for such a warm welcome. It's a huge honour to address our conference this morning. We gather at a time when all eyes are upon us, with battles behind us, challenges before us, and an unrivaled resolve between us. Our party was founded on the core principle of doing what is right for Northern Ireland. For over 50 years, we have stood strong and firm, knowing how and when to advance, knowing that the principles that unite us, underpin our philosophy, and drive us forward don't change with the seasons or blow with the wind. Our solid foundations stand the test of time. Today, as Deputy Leader of the Democratic Unionist Party, I want to put on record, I want to honour and put on record the foundation stones that have been laid before me. For 28 years, Peter Robinson, my mentor and friend, served in this role. Yes, he went on to lead our party and our country and is rightly credited with some of our greatest success. But for almost 3 decades, he invested in building our party, developing our purpose, and galvanising our people. As leader, Peter drew upon the steadfast, loyal, and dedicated support of Nigel Dodds. Serving as Deputy Leader for over a decade, Nigel's commitment to our country, our party, and our cause has never diminished. Thank you, Nigel. And more latterly, Paula Bradley took up the reins. Despite trying times for Paula personally, through her leadership, she served to demonstrate a sense of humanity and genuine connection between our party and our people. All three put party and cause before person. All three were and are driven by our collective desire to build on our solid foundations, and all three led the path upon which I now tread. Conference, my commitment to you, to Jeffrey and to the wider party, is to build on that legacy. Since my election, I've had the privilege of joining with many of our associations and branches, as well as supporting colleagues across the province at events. And through those engagements, I recognise now, more than ever, that through leading, we serve. Jeffrey and I lead as servants of all of our members. Our MPs, our peers, our MLAs, councillors and party members, we are your servants. And the DUP leads as servants of the people. We lead to protect our place in this United Kingdom. And in doing so, we lead to deliver for the people of Northern Ireland, and at challenging times, we lead to resolve the impediments that hold us back. In each of those tasks, one thing we don't lack is people trying to give us their advice. We're surrounded by opponents and commentators that don't share our concerns, who don't wish to understand the consequence of their constant dismissal, and who demean the process of getting back to the balance that makes Northern Ireland work. We hear them all the time, don't we? They decry the lack of progress while simultaneously scoffing at the obvious solutions. Reduce the friction on trade, resolve the democratic deficit, and repair the constitutional harm. 3 key concepts articulated in detail as essential to unlocking progress, yet we have to suffer through the missives of their expert analysis, conspiracy theorists, and perpetual naysayers. Yeah, we hear about the need for courtesy in our public discourse. But how often have you heard a colleague described as a big beast, like we inhabit some far-flung safari? Or worse still, others sneeringly dismissing our colleagues as a liberal. For liberal, of course, they mean weak. And conference, they need to know there is nothing weak about our unionism. Northern Ireland has flourished and will continue to flourish within the United Kingdom. Our union is strengthened by its difference, its complementary contrasts, and our comfort toward them. Our ability to shape our place within the United Kingdom amongst ourselves here in Northern Ireland is a strength. And be in no doubt that those who jump on every passing bandwagon to self-defeatingly dismiss the concept of devolved government do our cause no favours at all. In the face of deep opposition, we rightly highlighted the flaws of the Northern Ireland Protocol. We voted against it in Parliament and we warned of its pitfalls. And we faced the pious platitudes from the rigorous implementers and were told the protocol is here to stay. They decreed there would be no change. For them, majoritarianism never worked in Northern Ireland and could never work in Northern Ireland until, of course, they felt they were in a majority. Conference it shouldn't have taken. Our withdrawal from the executive to shift the dial. But imagine our surprise that as soon as the Windsor Framework was published, the rigorous implementers were quick to spin the same disc again. Without a blush, they decreed it had all been resolved. There's nothing to see here, and it won't change anyway. So that's your lot. Well, not quite. We're earnestly engaged in squaring the circle, and I have no doubt that Sir Geoffrey will have more to say on that later. But one thing, conference, is clear. Impetuous impatience will not eradicate the issues. Having smashed dynamic alignment and affirming our willingness to deliver together, we will get this right. You may have noticed that in April, the 25th anniversary of the Belfast Agreement provided ample opportunity for the great and the good to attack our position. Though I'm sure you noticed that there are at least two things missing from their revisionism. Firstly, throughout those 25 years, it was the failure to deal with difficult issues that meant the doors to Parliament buildings were closed for 40% of the time. Secondly, and perhaps more importantly, I didn't hear them once acknowledge that the most successful and sustained period of government in Northern Ireland was when we led the government from 2007 until 2017. We are of our community. We reflect their desire to get the job done, and we will deliver. The future conference is far too important to squander the opportunity to get the fundamentals right. And in securing the firm foundations for political stability, we must also champion financial stability of Northern Ireland. Without one, the other will falter. There is no prospect of successful government if the only future an executive can offer is one of service withdrawal and cuts. There's an unquestioned case for reform, but that doesn't mean that we can ignore the here and now. When I started championing the case for the reappraisal of how Northern Ireland is funded, I was a voice in the wilderness. Despite the clear and concise work of the Northern Ireland Fiscal Council, too many sought to pillory the calls as a diversion or a distraction. But these are the facts. Northern Ireland gets less than it needs. Not wants, desires, craves what it needs. Materially, that means less money for schools, hospitals, and roads. No flexibility to tackle waiting lists, increase special needs provision, or provide effective and meaningful support for childcare for our hard-working families. Last year, our government departments received £322 million less. This year, it's £431 million, and next year, it's £458. Year on year, the problem compounds. Year on year, the ability to deliver is crippled. And only this week, the Department of Finance talked about inflationary rises, putting the new level of pressure at £2.3 billion. As financial scope recedes, that means we don't have the ability to pay public sector workers properly or in keeping with their Great Britain counterparts. And the response from the Secretary of State? Nothing. Which, in fairness, is much more constructive than the response from his junior minister, Steve Baker. The erstwhile self-confessed agitator, the 12-hour candidate for Prime Minister, would be better back in the box he confessed to being released from at the start of the summer. The one-time Spartan who threatened to seize power is now the unparalleled Private Pike of Northern Ireland politics. But whether he gets it or not, the need for fiscal reform remains. If we want a government that is in the right position to deliver for our people, it needs financial firepower. As it stands, Treasury are now punishing Northern Ireland for their underfunding. There should be no surprise that last year's funding led to a corresponding overspend, and yet they expect us to do more this year, with even less, whilst at the same time pay back their own shortfalls from the previous year. They are actively hampering the positive impact government should have, and frustratingly there now appears to be some naive, superficial view that the bung of $1 billion would help. It wouldn't even cover last year's shortfall, the obvious gap this year, and honour those who honour us in the public sector with their pay award. Structurally, conference, a change is required, and simplistically, without it, devolved government will be unable to function. But having sorted the fundamentals, we must continue to strengthen the bonds. The relationship in any union cannot be one way. Yes, it's easy to talk about our historical contribution to the United Kingdom and indeed the world, but it need not be historical. Shipbuilding, ropeworks, linen, and aircraft manufacturing all easily trip off the tongue, just as the inventions of Massey Ferguson, Dunlop's pneumatic tyre, Professor Pantridge's mobile defibrillator, and yes, even Hans Sloane's chocolate. But today, financial services in Belfast see $600 billion of transactions clearing our city of Belfast every day. 1/3 of all aircraft seats are manufactured here in Northern Ireland. Spirit Aerospace in my constituency now connects our innovative aircraft expertise into a burgeoning global market. And shipbuilding, conference, I'm delighted to say that a renewed Harlan Wolff is rising once again. Those success stories draw upon our skill and our ability, but importantly, our place within the United Kingdom. Harlan Wolff is but one example of a local company now benefiting significantly from Ministry of Defence contracts, strengthening our place and purpose in the UK. £1.6 billion to reinforce and renew a key component of our maritime defence, being built here in Belfast. I'll make a speech another time about how Northern Ireland draws just 1/5 of the UK average on defence spend. But our contribution is much more than industrial. Take Thales, for example. Their ability to provide the practical means for Ukraine to defend herself during the early part of Russia's invasion was critical. At a time when the international community was considering how best to support Ukraine, NLAWS provided the main defensive bulwark against the outrageous incursion into Ukraine's sovereign territory. Colleagues, I was in Odessa the day more rockets landed than any other. I saw at firsthand the resilience of their people and left with an ingrained appreciation of their desire to regain the territorial integrity of their country. From a national perspective, our party proudly played a supportive role for Ukraine. We have not been and will not be found wanting on the defence of their sovereignty. Conference, we did not bow down to terrorism on this side of Europe, and will not bow down to international terrorism on the other side either. It should be no surprise that the only members of Parliament from Northern Ireland to be personally sanctioned by Russia are DUP MPs. Sammy, Gregory, Paul, Jim and I are proud of the stance that we have taken, and we will continue undeterred. And colleagues, we stand with Israel. No equivocation, no nuance. We believe Israel has the right to defend her borders. We believe in Israel's right to exist, free from terrorism, free from genocide, and free from the brutality that we witnessed last week. We pray for the restoration of peace, and we will continue to call out those who preach human rights, yet seemingly struggle to condemn slaughter, rape, and torture just because the victim wears a Star of David. Faith should have no bearing on the principles of peace and justice, democracy, and the rule of law. Those are principles worth defending, and to that end, our party proudly stands up for our armed forces at home and abroad. As Northern Ireland's only member of the Defence Select Committee, I'm proud that we as a party secured a UK-wide duty on the Armed Forces Covenant. No longer can a Northern Ireland minister respond through pure sectarianism to say that the Armed Forces Covenant doesn't apply here. It should. And as a direct result of our party efforts conference, it does. I'm delighted that our party now has a renewed team of armed forces champions across the councils of Northern Ireland. And I'm assured of their willingness to highlight, support and promote our brave service personnel and veterans across Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland's contribution to the defence of all realm remains significantly higher than our population. And just as servicemen and women from across this province honour us, so too we must honour them. And it doesn't stop there. Across a whole host of sectors, we both benefit from and contribute to the greater sum of our parts. In sport, music, industry, academia, politics, film and the arts, you will see and hear Northern Ireland's influence. It doesn't take long moving around London to know that our wee country is a significant part of our big country. Families spread throughout the length and the breadth of the United Kingdom. Jobs deployed throughout the United Kingdom, holidays enjoyed throughout the United Kingdom, networks linked throughout the United Kingdom, and memories made throughout the United Kingdom. We are you. You are us. And together we benefit from one another. Conference, as we lead for unionism, we should never lose sight of our ultimate aim. In cherishing what we inherit, is it our responsibility to build a better, stronger Northern Ireland and in turn a better, stronger United Kingdom. As any Game of Thrones fans will know, winter is coming, but let's never forget that spring isn't too far behind. With a renewed sense of determined optimism, I know, conference, that together we can succeed. Thank you.